minutes. He's been, under 30 minutes in basically every game since he's returned. But he has just been absolutely outstanding on a per minute basis. So even if you think maybe this gets him from 26 minutes to 28, 30 minutes, that's very good news for his fantasy stock. He has just been so good for this team, shorthanded, still playing without Desmond Bane, just taking on a bit more usage. And I think he's a nice tournament play now at 6,600 on DraftKings.
Yeah, I like that spot quite a bit. I totally agree with everything that you said on the Brandon Clark side of things, and I'll definitely be looking to grab a few additional shares. We'll see how it comes out of my sim. I'm not sure how much I had him in there in the first place, but I'll see if I can grab a few additional shares of him. But the guy that I think kind of has some appeal to me is Jaren Jackson, just given the per minute rate. And like you said, it might not be a major boost, but going from the 26.5 that we had him projected for to 28, if I'm pushing it, maybe I get 30 out of them, and I'm talking about 1.49 FanDuel points per minute. That starts to get really intriguing. I've got power forward and center eligibility on them. And then, like you said, 6,600 with that same eligibility over on DK. Just a monster potential piece from a points per minute perspective. Little alliteration there. And I think if the field starts hearing the name Brandon Clark a lot and seeing him at that 4,400, that 3,700, the value price, maybe they leave a few too many shares of Jaren Jackson on the table for us. So I kind of like the opportunity to go there. There's always the angle of going to a Dylan Brooks at 6,000 on FanDuel, 5,900 on DK. He's pulling in nice optimal rates. And then we've got John Morant up at the top of the board, 9,900 only on the FanDuel slate, has him about 24% optimal. He's 10.5 on DK, major price difference. So big time difference in the optimal rates. Are you getting any shares of Ja over on DK, or is it just kind of like you take him where you get him, or are you trying to look to get there? Because I think he's going to be a big part of my night on FanDuel.
Yeah, obviously a very strong play on FanDuel. I still have some exposure to him on DraftKings just because the matchup is so good. I definitely think it could be a spot where he bounces back. Again, with no Desmond Bane, he has taken on a bit more usage than usual. So like the ceiling is there. So I don't mind overpaying for a guy if I think that he still has some ceiling. And for me, Morant fits that mold today. It's also a slate where there's not a ton of studs that really stand out, right? You've got the Lakers guys, but if Anthony Davis and LeBron James are both in the lineup, then they kind of cannibalize each other a little bit. Kevin Durant is 10,800. That's kind of overpriced with Kyrie Irving back. So like for me, Ja grades out very favorably from a ceiling perspective compared to the rest of the studs. I actually have him with the highest ceiling projection on the slate. So I don't mind, quote unquote, overpaying for that guy in this matchup.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something that I try and do as well. With the absolute apex predator type players, and Ja is on that list for me. I'm willing to ignore a little bit of the leverage score or the optimal rates and just play for ceiling with some of those guys, because I'm getting my optimal rates, my leverage scores from some of these other plays, from the mid range, from the value, and I'm using that value to get me to players like Ja. And eventually, at a certain point, you do just need that pure raw scoring and that raw ceiling potential. So he's absolutely on that list. And like we said, the $9,900 on FanDuel is quite a nice price tag. So that's just going to naturally happen. But I would be looking to get to extra shares over on DK, despite a little bit of negative leverage as well. What about the other side of this one? No Cade Cunningham still for Detroit. What are we seeing from the Detroit side of things? Look like Isaiah Stewart, Bogdanovich up toward the top of this, and then you get the Ivies, the Jalen Duren's of the world. Who do you like from the Detroit side of this one?
Well, I if you don't know this about me, Terry, and I don't know why you would, but I'm a Killian Hayes fanboy. So
Okay.
I always want to play Killian Hayes. He doesn't look quite as appealing now that the price is up a little bit. And
so are you the guy that was buying all his top shots from me like a year or two ago?
I did buy a top shot for Killian Hayes. Yes.
I had a bunch of them for a while there of Killian. I think I offloaded some of those. Haven't talked about top
but
shots
yeah, he's basically, he's got a sub 2% optimal rate in the boom bust tool right now. So as much as it pains me to say it, I don't think we should be playing Killian Hayes tonight. I think Jaden Ivey is probably your best bet here. He's been sort of the focal point for the Pistons when he has been on the floor of late with Cade Cunningham sidelined. He's up over a fantasy point per minute over the past month. I think 6,500 is probably a bit too cheap for him. Isaiah Stewart's fine too. He's the type of player that, like I feel like he's got a pretty narrow range of outcomes. He's going to get us, somewhere in the vicinity of 25 to 30 fantasy points. And I certainly will not turn that down at 5,600. So those are really the two places for me, Ivy and Stewart, that I think are the best in this game.
Yeah, and just looking at our numbers, everything bears out exactly what you're saying. Nobody really standing tall on the Detroit side of things. Nobody even over 15% optimal on either site today. So it's really, kind of patted down a little bit for a game that's got a fairly healthy total. I think it's just, between the talent level on this team and going up against Memphis here, they're just kept down a little bit. And then you do have guys like Killian Hayes, who you mentioned, who are just priced into the stratosphere where it's just not going to fit his numbers. He projects out okay in terms of, his 26.74 projection on FanDuel and FanDuel points, but at 7,600, that's just not going to get us anywhere near where we need to be. Same story at 6,300 on DK, just like you said, 1.9% optimal. So we just lose some of those plays, or excuse me, even less optimal than that. The 1.9, 2.1 was the Marvin Bagley on the line above it. If anybody's looking at Marvin Bagley, also not that optimal. Let's do a quick piece of business here. We lost a little bit of time in the show, so I'm going to fly through this one, but we do have a couple pieces of business to talk about. The BetMGM no-brainer is back up. Bet $10 gets you $200 automatically. It's not even a bet. We shouldn't even use the word bet in this because you're just putting into $10 and you're taking out 200. That's how easy this is. That's how this works.
My kind of ATM right there.
It's exactly like an ATM, except all you have to do, think of the $10 bill as your ATM card. That's a great analogy. It's exactly what it is. All you have to do, put your ATM card in there and put it on a money line in a soccer game, a pregame money line. It can be any soccer game in the World Cup. This is World Cup related. If any team in the World Cup scores a goal, you get that $200 that you're promised here. And guess what? It's already happened. It happens fairly infrequently in soccer. I'm not going to lie to you guys. You watch an entire game, there's like 3 shots on goal and no goal scored, but it has happened already in the cup. It'll probably happen again. There's a few games left in the World Cup. So take advantage over at BetMGM with this no-brainer bet, guys. It is a great opportunity to just cash in $200. It's paid out in free bets. All the language, all the promo terms are in there. If you follow a link, I'm sure there's a link down there for you guys. I'm going to knock out the No House Advantage read here as well. No House is a great site. They're our promoting sponsor for this show, our presenting sponsor for this show. We're at the halfway point. This is where we normally talk about them, but they're an exciting place. If you're sick of this normal DFS stuff that we're talking about, this might be the new space for you to go play. It's a dynamic new way to play fantasy sports where they're using player props, and you can play in 2 different ways. You can play in large field tournaments against me, against Alex, against all the guys from the site and everybody out there in the world, and you can win up to 25 grand in cash. Those are great. We've got free projections. We've got optimal lineup builds for free up on the site to help you build lineups over at No House. It's a really fun, competitive way to play player props instead of fantasy points and salaries. There's also an against the house contest where you're just picking player props and putting them up against the house. The difference is it's a little bit of a tighter line when you're playing against the house. Against the field, they leave a lot of really loose lines, make it a lot of fun, give you a lot of good picks to work with. Against the house, you're getting sportsbook lines, but you can win up to 20 times your entry fee if you hit all of your picks. So it is a pretty killer way to get paid. In the versus the field contests, they're also leaving overlay on the board. All of these contests running with overlay. There's just free money on the board over there. If that free money's not enough, we've also got a $50 deposit bonus for you over at No House. So follow the link that's down in the description below this video that you guys are watching here on YouTube, or maybe it was on the last one. Navigate your way over to No House Advantage. Take advantage of the $50 deposit bonus, the free projections, the free optimal lineups. Go win yourself some money over at No House Advantage. We'll see you there. Matt, that is as quickly as I can do those 2 promos. Let's jump back into the game by game. Thank you, buddy. 233.5 total. Los Angeles Lakers favored by 2.5. Got the news that LeBron James is a go in this one. Lakers going into Washington to play the Wizards, who I still, for some reason, every time I write the run sheet, I almost type the word Bullets, even though they haven't been the Washington Bullets in like 25 years. I don't know why. But the Los Angeles Lakers, what are we liking from the Lakers side of this one?
Nothing really. Troy Brown Jr. I guess is okay at 3,400, right? He's been playing a decent handful of minutes recently. But there's a chance. I haven't seen the starting lineup. I would imagine with Dennis Schroeder back, there's a chance that Schroeder knocks him out of the starting unit. So there's really not much here. I mean, LeBron's the only guy with a greater than 10% optimal rate on DraftKings right now. And there are other studs that I just kind of prefer. So this is a team I have very, very little exposure to.
Yeah, it's another spot. I mean, two, relative stud players or two excellent star caliber players, depending on what you think of LeBron and AD at this point. But AD obviously having a great renaissance season, LeBron playing right there. And they're not really standing out in tools. The one thing they're standing out for a little bit is leverage. We're getting like a 12% optimal rate on LeBron and like half that in terms of the ownership. Similar story with AD, a little bit lower on the optimal rate, a little bit of leverage still squeaking out there. But it's not great in terms of how these guys grade out against the probability curve. So I'm interested to see how they come up in this sim that I'm running. I will absolutely take shares of LeBron and AD just kind of wherever they fall, but I don't expect that I'm going to be that aggressive about them. I would just try, and I think I'd like to be a little bit ahead of the field, but I'm not going to go, 25% on LeBron or something like that, even with the field at like 5. So I'm curious to see how it comes out. And then, yeah, everybody else just kind of odds and ends around the Lonnie Walkers, Patrick Beverleys, Dennis Schroeder, you mentioned, is coming back tonight. He grades out in the 5% range as far as optimal from site to site. Not a lot to see here on the Lakers side. What about on Washington side of things? Looks like there's a little bit more meat on the bone to talk about on the Wizards side of things with Kuzma, maybe Beal, maybe a little zinger.
Yeah, it's interesting. Those three guys have been doing like the vast majority of the scoring for this team recently. Like all three guys posting usage rates north of their season averages. So Bradley Beal is somebody that was like really not playing particularly well to start the year, but he has started to turn things around. I think he is still a little bit too cheap at 8,400 on DraftKings. He's somebody that I have in my player pool tonight. Same goes for Kyle Kuzma. I think he's probably a little bit underpriced at 7,700 on DraftKings. And you mentioned Kristaps. He's the lowest priority of that trio for me, just because he's the most expensive. But he's fine too. I won't fight too hard against Kristaps. After that, Denny is somebody we've been playing a little bit. But he hasn't been nearly the same player with the team back closer to full strength. So I don't really have a ton of interest in the value plays on this team. Maybe just a little bit of Denny, but that's about it.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Denny, I would probably have a little bit of. We'll see again where it comes through in the Sims. What I don't like about him on the FanDuel side, and it looks true on the DK side as well, -7 leverage. He's basically, approaching double the ownership that he should have as compared to what his optimal rate is. So I don't love that piece. Bradley Beal, a little bit of positive leverage on both sites. So I think there's definitely upside appeal there. And yeah, I'm with you on KP. I do like Porzingis, but just he's approaching that point where he's just priced so appropriately. 9,100 center power forward on FanDuel, 88 on center only on DK. Just feels appropriate, and he's getting ownership. If he was at that level and not owned, then I could take some shots. But yeah, another spot where I think I'll take him as I get him, but not really go too far out of my way for him. So let's jump in, unless anything else from this one that you want to call out?
No, I think that's it.
All right, let's jump into the lousiest game of the night. The Cleveland Cavaliers coming into the Garden to play my New York Knicks. We've got a total in the low 220s, 222 total as of the last time I saw. Close point spread, though. Should be a game. 2.5 point favorites for Cleveland. What are we seeing on the Cavs side of this one?
Yeah, Cavs are an interesting team right now. They are still playing without Jared Allen. So they actually are expected to start Mamadi Diakite today alongside Evan Mobley in the front court to go with Lamar Stevens, Donovan Mitchell, and Darius Garland. Diakite is priced at $3K, absolute minimum on DraftKings. So anytime you can get a min price starter, it's something that you should potentially consider. Right now, we only have him projected for 1% ownership. I would imagine if he is actually declared a member of the starting unit, that would go up. That said, I'm not going crazy with him because he hasn't been very good when he has gotten the opportunity to play. Right, 0.69 DraftKings points per minute this season, but still, he's min priced. He's probably going to play, if he starts, you would think somewhere around 18 to 20 minutes. That's more than enough to put him in your player pool. Evan Mobley is somebody that I've been using a bunch with Jared Allen sideline. The minutes are way up. The rebound rate is up. I think this is a solid spot to go back to the well with him. Right now, he's neutral from a leverage perspective, but he's only catching 10% projected ownership. I'll be overweight on that for sure. Kevin Love is priced at a point where he should be in your player pool too, I think.
Yep.
Right. He is always a threat to go for 40 DraftKings points in 20-ish minutes. Unfortunately, it's hard to predict which night that's going to actually happen, but we know it's within the range of outcomes. So I want to have some exposure to him too. The backcourt guys, not really doing a ton for me tonight. I have a little bit of Mitchell. I have a little bit of Garland, but I don't think that either guy is a priority.
Yep, both of those guys kind of just looking like who they are, to put a clunky pin on it. Priced in the 8,000s, shooting guard and point guard eligible. Garland only point guard over on DK, but otherwise the other spots are shooting guard, point guard, and both coming up in the mid-teens, optimal mid-teens, boom score probability. You can get a ceiling game out of either one, but they're both just looking appropriately owned and priced and everything. I do think that the Kevin Love price, very interesting. We've got him projected at 21 minutes. We'll see how that all falls down, because we do have a adjustment, at least of the last time I updated. We only had Diakite at 12.6 minutes, so that needed to be updated. Might have been updated in the last little bit since that was announced, but I expect his ownership will go up. Totally agree. There's definitely some value there at the dead minimum price, and I also totally agree with what somebody in the chat said. He does completely suck. 0.69 FanDuel points per minute to match the 0.69 DraftKings point per minute that he's been putting up this season. But sometimes it's just, rate over time, and we're getting the time today and we're getting the right price. So I do think there's opportunity there. What about the Knickerbockers on the other side of this one? Doesn't look great on FanDuel. Everybody basically priced appropriately. Nobody really cracking beyond 10% optimal lineup rate. On the DK side of things, you're getting a little love for Jalen Brunson, a little bit more across the board for these Knicks. They're, I guess, a little bit cheaper relative salary. What do you like from the Knicks, if anything?
Yeah, I really like Jalen Brunson at 6,900. He's coming off. He really has had a few poor showings in a row now, but we've seen plenty of upside from this guy. And he's somebody that was priced more in the mid sevens, high sevens, even type range of late. So I think we're getting a nice little discount here. This obviously isn't a game that we want to go crazy targeting. It's the lowest total on the slate. Cleveland's a tough matchup, but Brunson has proven that this is probably too cheap of a price tag for him. So I don't mind using him. I think he should be one of my more targeted point guards, I would think, on DraftKings. But after that, again, I feel like a broken record. It's hard to find players that really stand out here. I don't hate Mitchell Robinson at 4,600. I think against the size of the Cavaliers, a team that plays a lot of traditional big men, Robinson's minutes should be somewhat safe in this spot. And we know he's a pretty good producer when he does stay on the floor. He's averaged 1.14 DraftKings points per minute over the past month. And while he only played 23 minutes in their last game, which was a blowout, he played 33 the game prior. So I think actually the more I think about it and talk it through, Mitchell Robinson to me stands out as a pretty nice tournament option at less than 10% projected ownership.
Okay. All right. I can get on board with that, I think. Looking at him on the FanDuel slate, not so much. 6,000 center only, obviously, and only one crack at the center position. Has him just 4% optimal. He is positively leveraged, so if you wanted to go there hunting for the upside Mitch game, I don't completely hate it for large field tournaments on 150 entries, but it's not my top priority. But at 4.6K on DK, yeah, I think you've got a strong point there. That's pretty low price for a guy who can come out and put up a decent number here for us, and I think he's under-owned for that. Looking at the rest of the board for the Knicks, you got Quentin Grimes, Emmanuel Quickly, both priced in a reasonable, mid-range to value range, upper value range, lower mid-range, whatever you want to call it. Nobody else really standing out to me. You can take or leave RJ Barrett in most situations. He's another guy who just is who he is with the way that he's priced and the way that he's producing. Barrett for the season, 0.86 FanDuel points per minute. That is not what you want.
I don't think I've played Barrett once this year.
Star.
and I don't think I
Yeah.
regret that decision.
Yeah, he certainly hasn't made me regret the nights that I haven't played him. There have been 1 or 2 nights where he's trickled into a few of my lineups, but I haven't had that big, like, I need to have RJ Barrett in my lineups tonight because he's so well priced or somebody's out or whatever night. And I'm kind of thankful for that because he just has not been producing. And yeah, it's for us RJ Barrett defenders on the Knicks bandwagon here. It has not been a pretty start to the season. Hopefully he'll turn things around and start earning some of that money and some of our faith, our dreams, our misguided hopes, whatever we want to call them. Anything else from this game before we move on?
Yeah, I mean the off guard spot for the Knicks where you have, like you mentioned, Derrick Rose, Quentin Grimes, Emmanuel Quickly. I think if you were going to pick one of those to take a shot with, it would probably be Quickly. I just think that his per minute ability exceeds that of all the other players. And you never know what's going to happen, right? Randomly in their last game. Well, I guess not randomly. The team was getting blown out, but he played 30 minutes and he popped off. Like, I think that that's something that we can't take out of the equation with him. If for some reason he plays more than expected, he's going to be a good value at 4,500. So I don't mind baking in just a couple of shares of him, but again, we have him right now at a 5% optimal rate, essentially. So I'm not going crazy with him.
Yeah, I think that's fine. I would probably come back with, I think that Tibbs likes Quentin Grimes a little bit. I think organizationally they want Grimes to be that guy. We've obviously got him projected for more minutes, but I think if anybody for me would be the focus, I think I might go that route. But what I need from Grimes is that shot to start falling on at anything approaching a regular basis. And we just really haven't seen that. I do like the price, especially on DK at 3,800 with shooting guard and small forward eligibility. I think there's a little bit of upside there, but I think he's also owned to match whatever upside might be on the board. So for me, he wasn't really standing out, where, like you said, you do get Quickly at just 3% ownership, a little bit of positive leverage against this optimal rate. So I like the Quickly value call there. That's at least in play. As Gunn says, that dog will hunt. So I'm with you there. Let's take a quick look back here at the old list. What did I not plug for you guys? Oh, this is an important one for everybody who's out there. So let me talk about this one. This is a good one for you guys. It's 3 free days of Stokastic Plus NBA. That's a pretty good deal. All you got to do is, I don't know, there's probably a link somewhere, or navigate your way over to Stokastic Plus. But it says, okay, yep, reference link to use in description in big all caps letters right at the top of this thing that I'm reading here. Probably should have noticed that. Not sure if it's in the description on the new video that you guys are watching, but you can go back to the old one. You can definitely find it there. What it's going to do, you're going to click that link. You're going to go over to Stokastic. You're going to create a free account, and your first 3 days of NBA Plus are going to be for free. That includes the projections, the ownership, the boom bust tool, all the different things that we talk about here, 1v1 tools, the lineup generator, all that good stuff. It's a great way to test drive the tools. It's a great way to get into the community. Make sure that you sign up for Discord, jump in there, say hi, introduce yourself to the crowd, ask questions, get to know the people. I think that you will continue with us if you sign up for 3 days and get the 3 days free. Hopefully you win a lot of money so that it's easy to continue with us. But like I said, just a great way to peek behind the curtain and find out what's going on with our killer tools over at Stokastic. And with that, Matt, let's jump into a high end game for the NBA, kind of a feature game. The Boston Celtics going into Brooklyn. Celtics 2.5 point favorites. Nice 232 point total on the board here. Star laden game. What are we seeing from the Boston side of this one?
So yeah, I've been sort of down on every stud we've talked about so far. That's not the case with Jason Tatum. I like Jason Tatum very much here. If you look at the 2 games that they played without Marcus Smart this season, Tatum sort of took over as a primary facilitator. He had 8 assists and 10 assists in those 2 contests. Now, he didn't score the ball as well as he usually does because he shot the ball poorly. He was 6 for 19 and 6 for 18 from the field, but he still was, about as aggressive as you would expect for Jason Tatum looking for his shot. So with some increased upside as a distributor to go along with, what has already been an incredible scoring season, he's doing good work on the glass. I really like Jason Tatum on this slate, and he's only catching 8.3% ownership right now, projected on DraftKings. That feels like a major mistake.
Yeah, that seems low by the public. Looking at him on FanDuel, though, we're seeing similar things. 6.5% ownership on the FanDuel slate, coming up 9.6% optimal. Do you think that it's just people are uncomfortable paying 10.8, 10.6 for Jason Tatum? Do people not see him as that kind of a player? Because I sure do.
I mean, it's possible. He's been 10-8 or higher really on DraftKings for the past month. So if that is the case, I suggest they get over it and get used to it.
It's not going to change. Let's put 1.37 FanDuel points per minute from the guy this season, 1.41 on the DK side of things. I don't know what's not to like about Tatum here, but yeah, I absolutely agree with you there. You get multi-position out of him. Everything to love in this spot with additional potential upside for the situation. So love that. I'm actually in the process of grabbing my lineups for FanDuel right now. I'm going to make sure I have a little bit extra. I'm glad you called that one out. What about Jaylen Brown, Brogdon, Derek White, with the point guard situation? What are we thinking there?
Yeah, I think Derek White,
Smart.
excellent value at 4,900. Don't mind using him at all. Another guy that the ownership projections are just way down on that I don't understand, but I'm certainly not going to complain. He's increased his production to right under a fantasy point per minute over the past month, and I have him projected for close to 30 minutes tonight. So that seems more than fine at 4,900. Brogdon, I don't have the same minute projection for, but he makes up for it because he's a little bit better on a per minute basis. So I lean White in that pairing, but both guys super playable at 4,900. I think Al Horford is okay at 5,100. Jaylen Brown is solid for me. I mean, I don't like the idea of necessarily playing him and Tatum together. I think that if we're banking on a Tatum ceiling game, there's not necessarily going to be enough there for
Little too
Brown
much
to
negative
also
correlation.
go off. So I would lean towards I lean towards Tatum in that pairing, but Brown is he's fairly priced as well. So if you're not using Tatum in some lineups, that would be a decent pivot.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. And that's, typically the case. You don't see the massive ceiling games out of both of them at the same time. So it's not like I group it out, but I do tend to not get them together. So that's probably something that'll be true about my lineups without me really pushing it too hard over there. But I don't mind getting the shares of Jaylen Brown just because of his talent. The price is fair at 8,400. It's fair at worst, arguably a little bit discounted for a guy who's giving you 1.14 FanDuel points a minute, 8.3K in multi-position over on DK as well. So I do like the upside there, but yeah, I agree. As far as getting them together, Al Horford definitely on the board for me. What about the other side of this one? The Brooklyn team, Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant up toward the top of the board here. We do have TJ Warren back in the mix, but we've only got him projected out for like 18 minutes. He's 3,700 with multi-position at both forward spots on FanDuel, as opposed to the $5,000 that he is on DK. So maybe a little bit on the bone there for Warren, but I don't love that spot. What are you seeing from the Nets side of things?
The bubble boy, TJ Warren, is back. Man, remember that bubble performance? He went off.
Yep, absolutely.
In that bubble. So anyway, hopefully.
Is that going to be TJ Warren that we're seeing tonight, though?
I would say no. In the limited minutes he's going to play, I don't have enough. I don't have any interest in playing him tonight.
Yeah.
For me, the Nets start with Nick Claxton right now. With Ben Simmons sidelined, Claxton's minutes are really secure. I think he's got 30 for sure locked in with upside for more. And given what he has done this season on a per minute basis, he's at 1.09 DraftKings points per minute. 6K is just a very fair price tag for what you're getting from Nick Claxton. So he's going to be popular on this slate. He has a roughly 22% ownership projection, but that's not chalky enough where I am not interested in playing him. So I think Claxton is totally fine there. As for the stars, KD to me seems overpriced. I would rather play Jason Tatum. There's some positive leverage with Durant the same way that there is for Tatum in the boom bust tool, but I just prefer the Tatum side of this matchup. And I will say that Kyrie at 8,200, I think I like him a little bit better than Jaylen Brown at 8,300. So I lean the Celtics marquee star, but the Nets secondary star.
Okay. All right, that's a fair approach. I think that works for me. And yeah, the pricing sets up pretty to make that a pretty dead even comparison with Kyrie 81 on FanDuel, 82 on DK, and KD 10-4 and 10-8 with similar positioning. I do really like the leverage that I'm getting on KD there. Would you have lineups where you play KD and Tatum in them together and try and go like superstarsy scrubsy that way and get two stars from the same game who are going to be kind of faced up against one another here? Is that a build that you would have issues with?
The thing is that makes that tough tonight is the value is just kind of thin.
Yeah.
Like if you're gonna do that, I think for sure you need to play Brandon Clark. You know, we can circle back to Brandon Clark. I think now that some of the projections have updated, he's standing out as a really strong option at 3,700. So like just looking through it, if I was to run a build with both of those guys, I would need Clark. I would probably need Andre Drummond, and I would need maybe even one other source of
Yeah,
value, maybe
probably
like
one
an
more.
Alex Caruso or an Andrew Nemhard if Tyrese Halliburton sits out in that last game. So I'm not going to say that you can't do it. I just don't like. I think that it might be a little bit too top heavy for the value we have today.
Yeah, you might just have to chisel away too much of your base of potential fantasy points
Right.
that it wouldn't make it worth it compared to other lineups that you could potentially build. Anything else from this one, or should we jump over to that Pacers and Blazers one and round it out in the last 6-7 minutes here?
Uh I think Joe Harris, as much as I've been waiting for him to bounce back, and it seems like he finally has bounced back. Um, like he's now a little bit more expensive. I don't mind Joe Harris as another potential value guy. He's another player that's showing up with a positive leverage score. And again, he just shot the ball so poorly to start the year, but I doubt he forgot how to shoot. You know, when before he got hurt, he was arguably the best 3-point shooter in the league. He
Mhm.
now has 3 straight games with 25 DraftKings points. I think he's fine too at 4,400.
Okay. All right, another piece there, and yeah, I mean, you're talking about just a guy who's been a dead eye shooter in his history, and I remember just last year thinking about when they acquired Simmons, and we were just talking about the potential for him being the rim running center with Kyrie and KD, and then these two ridiculous 3-point shooters in Joe Harris and Seth Curry, and we haven't really fully seen it totally in action. Everybody fully healthy, everybody raring to go, but I think it's got some potential to it still if those guys are hitting their shots, and it's still an interesting configuration of a team if we can get there. But let's take a look. 5 minutes or so left in the show. We'll jump over to that last game. You mentioned major piece of news still pending from the Indiana side with Tyrese Halliburton. We've been projecting him in. Most of our numbers as of my last update had him in, but the potential to create some value if he doesn't go. So why don't you pick up from there and talk about the Indiana side of this one?
Yeah, and I think that if you had asked me before the season started, like if you see a Tyrese Halliburton questionable tag, like I would be approaching it as well, he's always gonna sit because the Pacers are not trying to win games. They are playing for the future.
Mhm.
Um, they've been better than expected. They're currently in 5th place in the Eastern Conference, and I don't know if that's going to continue. I would be surprised if it did, but I don't think that they're necessarily ready to start waving the white flag just yet. So we saw Halliburton questionable a few days ago or a few weeks ago, excuse me, and he ended up playing after he had rolled his ankle like pretty nastily the night before. So I do think he probably suits up at 9,100. I think that that's a great price tag for him. It's a price that if he wasn't questionable, I think he would be catching a ton more ownership. So I will have him in my lineups, and if I have to make some changes, then I'll worry about that when I have to. But I think 9,100 is too good of a price tag on him to pass up on DraftKings. If he does sit, then I think that the guys that you want are Nemhart. Obviously, TJ McConnell is somebody that we've used in the past whenever he enters the starting lineup. And Benedict Mathurin might be the biggest beneficiary. He's seen the biggest spike in usage with Halliburton off the floor this season. So I'm preparing as though Tyrese is going to play. I like him at that price tag. But I think you should have some swaps and pivots worked out just in case he doesn't.
And is that something that you're kind of building into your plan to, like the other night, the guys were talking about leaving a ton of room for TJ McConnell in the event that Hallie didn't play. I was kind of building along those lines as well. And then we, of course, got the night that he came in and ended up playing. Right now, we've got it projected as though he's going to play, but we do have McConnell sitting there. It's 4,200 on FanDuel, 4,000 on DK, and the potential for a very nice point per minute upside kind of a player, point per minute guy with upside for more, I think, when he's out there on the court for a full game. So is that a plan that you've got in place where you've got a couple easy swaps that you've got your eye on? Okay, if Halliburton doesn't go, I can swap X to Y. Like, what do you have in mind, knowing that, you know, most of these games lock and we're only working within this one game?
Yep. So I think that you can build it out with Tyrese Halliburton, but then you want to make sure that you obviously have some other pieces. So for me, I have Trendon Watford in my player pool for the Blazers. He's at 3,500. There would be a lot of 2v2 situations where you can go down from Halliburton to a Nemhart or a TJ McConnell, and then you can go up from Watford to, you know, a Jeremy Grant, a Yusuf Nurkic. Like, you give yourself some flexibility to go up one way and down the other.
Okay. Yep. And it's a tricky spot with that, that being the only one game there. And if it sounds like I didn't actually hear your answer there, that's because that's true. Because I was looking and making sure that I don't have any players who aren't starting in my lineups. The one guy I had to check there was Caruso. I hadn't caught the news, and he ended up in a bunch of my lineups there. Portland side of things, I think I've got a bunch of Nurkic again in my lineups. That was kind of the case yesterday. Taking it again today, put up 39.8 FanDuel points last night. Approaching, reasonable ownership, 33% owned against 26% optimal on the FanDuel slate. Looking across town on DK, similar numbers, 20% optimal, 29% owned. So a little bit more owned, but I do think he's one of the better upside centers on the board. Are you getting to Nurkic? And then what do you think of the rest of the Portland side with Damian Lillard potentially coming back here, knowing that we've got about a minute?
Yeah, I do have a good bit of Nurkic, but probably less than what the field will have, just because I have some lineups where Clark's going to be at center. I have some Drummond. I have some Claxton, some Jaren Jackson Jr. So I would say that I will be under the 30% projected ownership, but he's still probably my favorite guy on the team, just because with Lillard back in the fold, Jeremy Grant sees a usage decrease. Anthony Simon sees a usage decrease. Nurkic also probably sees a usage decrease, but he can at least make up for it with some of the other stuff that he does.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And then as far as I heard you mention Jeremy Grant in there, it looks like he's come down a peg in terms of where he's been recently, at least on the FanDuel side of things. He's priced up at 82, only a handful of points as far as optimal, but almost 10% optimal at 73 on DK. Is he a guy that made his way into your lineups now that we're at lock, basically?
No, I X'd him out just because, again, I think it is a great matchup, but we have not seen the same upside from Jeremy Grant when Damian Lillard has been available. So even if Lillard is limited, I still think it's just going to be very tough for him to get the job done. I think he's more of like a 30 fantasy point type player than a 40 fantasy point type player, which is what he has been with Lillard sidelined.
Yep, makes sense. And that's basically what we've seen alongside Lillard, and that's what we've seen from him, over time as well. I think that's just kind of who he is, and we can be confident in that. And you get the occasional outburst game, but we're probably unlikely to miss it here. So that brings us up to lock, gang. Good luck. Apologies for the issues with the stream earlier, but hopefully everybody made it over, caught all the advice that they need. We appreciate you guys toughing it out with us. Make sure you hit the like and the subscribe button. Give Matt an idea of how well he did here. I think he crushed it, but give us a bunch of likes here and, fill him with confidence about how great he was with the analysis here. I was just okay asking these different questions. Make sure you're coming. Thank you, pal. I appreciate that. Make sure you're coming back for, looks like we've got NFL. Oh, this is the wrong schedule. Oh, no, there it is. NFL Showdown live before lock, 7:15 this evening with Mr. Eric Lindquist and Mr. Neil Orfield to take you through the NFL Showdown game. With that, I'm going to go find some dinner. Good luck in the NBA tonight, gang.